From the outside, the Johnsons looked like the perfect American family. A beautiful home in Willow Creek, Ohio. Two adorable kids. A husband with a good job. And a wife who seemed to have everything she could ever want. But behind those closed doors, where no one else could see, was a different story entirely. Sarah Johnson was 32 years old. Kind, patient, soft-spoken. She worked part-time as a nurse aide at the local care center. Her husband, Mark, was a sales manager, charming in public, respected by his neighbors, and known at church as a devoted family man. Everyone thought they were the couple others should look up to. But the truth was something Sarah had been hiding for years. Every morning, before she left for work, Sarah stood in front of the bathroom mirror, applying layers of makeup. Not to look beautiful, but to cover the bruises. A faint one on her jaw, another fading yellow mark near her temple. Each one a memory of the nights she wished she could forget. It hadn't always been like that. When she first met Mark, he was everything she'd ever wanted. He was attentive, funny, and ambitious. He sent flowers to her job, opened doors for her, made her feel like she was the most important person in the world. But after the wedding, something changed. It started small. An insult disguised as a joke. A comment about her clothes. A complaint about her friends. Then came the shouting. The slammed doors. And eventually, the hands that no longer reached for her in love, but in anger. Sarah had learned how to walk on eggshells. She knew which words triggered him, which tone of voice made things worse, and which days to just stay silent. She told herself she was staying for the children. Lucas, age 8, and Emma, age 6. She told herself Mark was just stressed, that things would get better. That love, real love, was about forgiveness. But deep down, she knew the truth. She wasn't living, she was surviving. At work, Sarah's co-workers began to notice the change in her. Lisa, her closest friend at the nursing home, tried to ask one day. She saw the bruise on Sarah's wrist and gently said, "That looks painful. Are you okay?" Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that breaks your heart because you know it's hiding something. She said she'd bumped into a cabinet. Lisa didn't believe her, but she also knew that pushing too hard could make things worse. Sarah's secret was the kind of secret that lived in silence, one she carried alone, even when it was killing her inside. One evening, after work, Sarah sat in her car in the parking lot. The sunset painted the sky orange, but she didn't notice. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. She didn't want to go home. She sat there for almost an hour, replaying the same thoughts that haunted her every night. What if he's angry again? What if the kids see it this time? What if this is just my life now? When she finally gathered the courage to drive home, her heart was already heavy. Mark was waiting by the door, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. He accused her of being late on purpose. Said she was probably talking to someone else. And before she could even explain, he hit her. It wasn't the first time. But this one hurt differently, not just on the outside, but deep inside where her spirit used to live. That night, after he'd fallen asleep, Sarah slipped into the bathroom. She turned on the light and stared at her reflection. The bruises stared back, dark, defiant reminders of everything she'd been hiding. She thought about her children, sleeping peacefully in the next room, and for the first time, she let herself imagine something impossible, a life without him. She whispered to herself, "You have to leave." But fear answered louder. Where would you go? The next morning, at her son's school, a teacher named Mrs. Carter stopped her. She said Lucas had been quiet lately, distracted. Then, softly, she asked if everything was okay at home. Sarah smiled and said yes. But as she walked back to her car, tears fell silently down her face. Because she realized, even her son was starting to carry her fear. A week later, things got worse. Mark came home early and found Sarah talking to Lisa on the phone. He snatched the phone out of her hand and threw it across the room. He accused her of gossiping about him, of trying to make him look like a monster. Then he grabbed her wrist and shoved her against the wall. The kids saw everything. Emma screamed. Lucas ran forward, trying to protect his mother. And in that moment, something inside Sarah snapped. For the first time, she didn't beg. She didn't apologize. She pushed him back, grabbed her phone, and called 911. Her voice shook as she told the operator her address, her words barely audible through her tears. By the time police arrived, Mark had already composed himself, calm, polite, charming, as always. He told the officers it was just a misunderstanding. He said his wife was emotional, and like so many women before her, Sarah watched as the system failed her. They warned him to calm down and left. That night, Mark cried and said he was sorry. He told her he loved her, that he'd been under pressure at work, that he didn't mean it. He promised to be better, just like he always did. But something was different this time. Because as he spoke, Sarah wasn't listening. She was planning. Over the next few weeks, she documented everything, the bruises, the threats, the fear. She secretly saved money from her paychecks, hid it inside a children's storybook in her daughter's room. Lisa helped her find a domestic violence shelter across town. They told her to come when she was ready, no notice, no questions. And one night, after Mark had gone to sleep, she packed 2 small bags. One for her kids, one for herself. She stood at the doorway for a moment, staring at the house that had been both her home and her prison. Then she whispered, "No more." She took her children by the hand and drove away. The road was dark and empty. Every mile between her and that house felt like a lifetime. Her hands were shaking, but her heart felt light for the first time in years. She didn't know what the future looked like, where they'd live, how she'd provide, what Mark would do when he found out. But she knew one thing for certain: she'd never let her children grow up thinking love was supposed to hurt. By morning, they arrived at the shelter. A woman opened the door and smiled, the kind of smile that tells you you're safe now. She gave Sarah a warm blanket, a cup of coffee, and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." Sarah sat with her kids in her arms as the sun rose outside. It was the first sunrise she'd seen without fear, for the first time in years. She wasn't hiding the bruises, she was healing from them.